She had just stepped off the bus, free for the first time in years, but freedom felt like a stranger. 5 years stolen from her life for a crime she didn't commit. 5 years labeled, shamed, and forgotten. And then, at that very bus stop, the same racist cops who put her behind bars appeared. What happened in the next few seconds would turn quiet vengeance into a public reckoning. But how did a wrongfully jailed black girl end up delivering justice no one saw coming? For most of her life, Maya knew the sound of the city like the rhythm of a familiar song. Buses hissing to a stop, street vendors calling out, neighbors laughing on stoops. She was just 18 when it all stopped. One morning, on her way to a part-time job at the corner cafe, 2 police cruisers pulled up beside her. No questions, no explanations, just cold metal cuffs on her wrists. The headlines later called it justice served, but Maya knew it was a lie. 5 years later, the world had moved on. Maya had learned to live small, keep her head down, and avoid the eyes that once judged her. But freedom couldn't erase the memory of the uniforms that stole her youth. And on a gray afternoon at the bus stop, the past was about to find her again, this time in the most unexpected way. The bus stop was nearly empty that afternoon, just Maya, an older woman reading a paper, and a man with earbuds who kept glancing at his phone. The winter air bit at her skin, and she pulled her jacket tighter, hoping the ride would come quickly. That's when she saw them. 2 men in uniform standing across the street, talking casually. Too casually. While their eyes never left her. Her chest tightened. She knew those faces. Sergeant Hale and Officer Briggs, the ones who had dragged her out of the cafe, shoved her into the back of the cruiser, and testified that she fit the description. The ones who ignored the evidence that could have cleared her. The ones who smirked when the judge read the guilty verdict. For a moment, she thought they might just pass by. But they didn't. Step by step, they crossed toward her, boots crunching on salt-stained pavement. Her mind spun. Did they recognize her? Did they even remember? She had replayed their voices in her head for years, but to them, maybe she was just another arrest on a long list, a statistic, a name long forgotten. Hale's mouth curled into something between a grin and a sneer. Briggs adjusted his belt, eyes raking over her like he was taking inventory. "Out for a walk?" Hale said, his tone dripping with mockery. Maya didn't answer. She kept her gaze on the bus sign, willing the number 27 to appear. But silence never protected her before. They stepped closer, too close. The space between them evaporated until she could smell the faint scent of coffee and cigarette smoke on their breath. Her heart hammered. She thought of the years she'd spent in a concrete cell. Cold mornings, harsh lights, the sound of metal doors clanging shut. She thought of her mother's tears on visiting days, of the nights she lay awake wondering if this was all her life would be. And now, they were here, in front of her, free, smiling, like none of it mattered. A cold wind swept through the bus stop, but Maya barely felt it. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from something deeper, something hotter. Then Briggs leaned in, voice low. "Surprised to see us?" The words hit her like a spark in dry grass. Her vision sharpened. Every detail, Hale's smug expression, the creak of his leather belt, the faint crackle of a radio, etched into her memory. Behind them, the older woman stood, folding her newspaper slowly, eyes narrowing. The man with earbuds slipped them out, sensing the shift in the air. And in that charged, silent moment, Maya realized this wasn't just a chance encounter. This was the past stepping back into her life, daring her to stay small. She wouldn't. Hale's hand rested casually on his holster like it was second nature. Briggs shifted his weight forward, blocking her escape. The air seemed heavier now, pressing in on Maya's chest. Around them, the street was still alive. Cars passing, footsteps echoing, but to her it all blurred into a dull roar. Hale stepped closer, his shadow stretching over her. "Still think you're innocent?" he muttered, just loud enough for her to hear. In that instant, every scar the last 5 years had carved into her rose to the surface. The sleepless nights in a freezing cell, the humiliation of strip searches, the sound of keys turning in locks that always closed behind her, the trial where no one believed her. And these two, standing in front of her now, were the architects of it all. Her breath quickened, but her body didn't retreat. She was no longer the terrified teenager they had broken. She was here, free. And this time, the world was watching. From somewhere behind, the faint click of a phone camera broke through the moment. Then another. The bystanders weren't just looking, they were recording. Hale's eyes flicked to the small crowd gathering. Briggs smirked, as if daring her to make a move that could justify his next action. But it was Maya who moved first. She stepped forward, her voice sharp and unshaken. "You stole my life." The words cut through the cold air, drawing the attention of everyone nearby. Hale's smirk faltered. Briggs shifted, uneasy now. And then, it happened. One swift motion. Years of rage, grief, and survival compressed into a single strike. The impact echoed off the brick walls around them. Hale's body dropped hard to the pavement, the thud silencing the street. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone shouted. Cameras caught every frame. Maya stood over him, chest rising and falling, eyes locked on Briggs. And in that frozen second, one thought burned in her mind. This was no longer just about her. The street erupted in chaos. Briggs froze, torn between helping his partner and facing the dozens of phones now aimed at them. Hale groaned on the pavement, his authority shattered in an instant. The sound of sirens in the distance grew louder, but for once, Maya didn't feel the panic she'd known for years. She felt seen. When officers arrived, it wasn't the story Hale and Briggs had told 5 years ago. This time, there were witnesses. There was proof. The crowd's voices drowned out the weak excuses, demanding answers, demanding accountability. And as Hale was lifted from the ground, the balance of power had shifted, if only for a moment. For Maya, it wasn't about winning. No amount of justice could return the 5 years stolen from her. But standing at that bus stop, with strangers defending her and cameras capturing the truth, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: control over her own story. But this moment was bigger than one bus stop, bigger than Maya. Because for every person like her who finds the courage to stand up, there are countless others whose voices are silenced before they ever get the chance. The truth is, this wasn't an isolated incident. It's a chapter in a much larger story. One where race, power, and prejudice collide, leaving lives broken in their wake. So, the question remains: how many more lives have to be stolen? How many more truths buried before the world stops looking away? Because justice shouldn't be the exception, it should be the rule.